so if everybody would take a seat. Would everybody join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Okay, our first order of business is to elect a moderator. Do I have any nominations for moderator? Yes? Will Meikle. Do I have a second for Will?
Second.
We got 2 seconds for Will. Are there any other nominations for moderator? Yes?
Matthew Grimes.
Matthew Grimes. Do I have a second for Matthew? We got a second. Okay, are there any other nominations for moderator? Okay. If we can do by a show of hands, how many people are in favor of nominating Mr. Meikle? Raise your hands. Okay. And those in favor of Mr. Grimes, raise your hands. Boy, that's pretty close. Yeah, we're going to have to count. So if everybody for Mr. Grimes will keep your hand raised, we will ask the registrar to count the votes. Right? Do we have a registrar here? So we can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 18, 19, 20. Are you from Mr. Grimes? Walking down? Yeah. Okay, I counted 21. Is that right? Those for Mr. Meikle, would you raise your hands? You're for Mr. Meikle, Austin? 23. I have 26 for Mr. Meikle, 21 for Mr. Grimes.
Divide the house.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Divide the house.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you, Matt.
Divide the house.
Divide the house. Oh, we could do that. We could do that. Okay, would everybody who wants it, we want to make sure we get this right, would everybody who is in favor of Mr. Grimes, please come over here to this side of the room? We're going to put Grimes, Mr. Grimes on this side of the room. We use the center divider, and the ones for Mr. Meikle on this side of the room. The center aisle will be the divider. Sorry to move everybody around, but we want to get this right. And we'll ask, would you help count? Go about, you'll count that side? Okay, if just bear with us for a couple of minutes. Would you count that side, and then I need someone to count this side. Could you count this side now? Because we're doing 33 on this side. I'm sorry? 33. Oh, did you count Glenn? Oh, Glenn's on that. $24 on this side. Mr. Meikle wins that 33 to 24. We'll hand this over to you now.
And if you want to move back, you can.
If you want to go back to you can stay where you are.
Can you hear me? Here we go. Good evening. Just to recap what we're going to accomplish this evening is, one, to do a review of the budget that was put forth by the Board of Finance, And then secondly, we will vote on a referendum date when the town will come together to vote on this. Okay. So with that, first order of business, is there a motion to waive the reading of the call of the meeting? Thank you, Tara. And you have a second? Bob, thank you. All those in favor? No. Any opposed? No. Okay, that passes. Thank you. Secondly, is there a motion to waive the reading of the resolution by the town attorney?
So moved.
Steve, thank you. A second? Jean Hartnett, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, it passes. Thank you. Okay, at this point, I will turn this over to our Steve to take us through the budget.
Excuse me.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate you bearing with me. I'm not quite as ambulatory as I usually am. On the budget, can we move to the first slide? Next slide. Our purpose tonight is to review the budget. Can I move the slide? I don't know how. Oh, okay. So I'll just go to the agenda. The resolution 2526 budget proposal, we read the notice of the annual town meeting. Now we're in the presentation stage. We'll then move on to discussion, public comments from the public. The moderator will run that, and then we'll close discussion if there are no further comments. There's no vote on the budget tonight. This is simply to set the date and time of the referendum. Then resolution number 2 we will go over is to set the referendum date and vote on it. And then we will have John Lucas, our town treasurer, give us his report as required by general statute, and then we have an adjournment. Can we move to the next one? Okay, this is our operating budget based on all of the various things that the town does. As you can see, as is usual, almost 61% of our budget is dedicated to our education. That is true in most towns. Most towns are between 60, 65, and in a few cases 70% of their budget is the Board of Ed. This budget on the town side pretty much stays in line with what we've had over the past few years. The growth we have had is primarily in debt service over the last couple of years as we rolled in the debt for the new school that we approved about 6 years ago. Okay, can we move on? This year, our status quo increase is about 1.75%. This year, given the problems that we had with the budget, with the problem with expenses and inflation, and particularly in health insurance and electricity, have really hit our budget hard. We've been able to stay within our budget without requesting or allocating any additional funds over and above the budget that was approved by the voters last year for this year's budget, but it hasn't been easy. We expect that we will end the year under budget, right? We did have some one-time and additional revenue that we did not expect in the budget, particularly interest income, where interest rates stayed higher than we had predicted a year and a few months ago, so that was to the good. For new items, Brookfield, I know I moved to Brookfield in 1983 and we had 34 police officers there. We now have 37 police officers, but 3 of those are SROs. They work in the schools, primarily. We then get used to them during the summer, but they are not full-time police officers, as most residents would see that. We have grown. When I moved here in '83, we had 11,000 some odd people living in town. Right now, the latest census says we have 17,500. We have grown substantially through local development, residential development, some apartments. The downtown has grown. It is time to add police officers. That is driven by a number of things. One is population. It is not driven by crime. It's driven by just need. The more people you have, the more requests you have for public help from the police, fire, and EMS. So we're asking the voters to approve to add 2 new officers, add a part-time dispatcher, add a part-time records clerk. The police need increased training due to state regulations and requirements, and obviously we have to keep our police department armed, and they've asked for additional ammunition. In culture and recreation, for about 5 years, we had no need to do anything at the Candlewood Lake Elementary School property, Huckleberry. We had taken out the maintenance of that out of the budget. Now that Parks and Rec is managing that property, we need to put in the maintenance of that back in. We are moving the field turf cleaning to the operating budget. After discussion, we always want things that are going to happen in town and in the town budget. If it's going to happen again and again, over and over on a regular basis, that should not be in the capital budget. It should be in the operating budget. We need to clean the turf field to keep them safe, to keep them clean, to keep them bouncy, right? For our students and other people who use it, primarily our students. So we moved that to the operating budget. It's increased our operating budget a little bit, but lowered capital. This year we are going to start our negotiations with our unions. All of our unions have 5-year contracts. The last time we signed one with them was obviously 5 years ago, so we have to start negotiating with them. The first one will start, the contract ends June 30th. We're going into negotiations with them next week, and we will hopefully, and then that will be followed by the other unions that we have through next December. We expect that, as we normally do, that we will be giving salary increases to our union members. One, it's the right thing to do, and two, a lot of people don't know this, but if you go into negotiations with a union and you do not agree, you cannot come to an agreement. You go to what's called arbitration. Arbitration is different than mediation. Mediation is a mediator trying to find a common middle. When you go to arbitration, and let's say you can't agree on salary raises, and the unions say, we want 8% raises, and the town says, no, we only want to give 1% raises. That's what we think is fair and reasonable. You go to an arbitrator, and the arbitrator picks one or the other. If the town does not offer reasonable increases to union members, which is most of our employees are union members, and you have to go to arbitration, towns usually lose. Because if you go to arbitration and the town's offer is 2%, and then the unions will go, give me 8. And they will pick one number or the other. So we want to stay away from arbitration. So that forces both sides to be reasonable and to agree on reasonable increases in salaries and benefits. So the total new, and then we have legal fees for tax suits that we have. This happens every time we have revals. We have a couple of large, construct large buildings in town along the Federal Road corridor, that every time we reval their building, they sue the town. They do it every single time. They have a whole legal firm that does nothing but sue towns about the valuation of their properties. That's what we do. And also, we're going to have union negotiations, which is going to increase our labor costs for our labor attorney. So the total of new initiatives is about $478,000. That's 2.1%. Total budget increase for the town is about 3.85 to 3.86%. Can we move to the next page? On that, I wanted to say one thing. I think a lot of you are aware that the state changed the way that we value motor vehicles. Motor vehicles are now being valued based on the manufacturer's suggested retail price with a discount every year. So the first year you buy a new car, in the first year it will be valued at 80%, right? The new valuation method originally lost the town over $600,000 in revenue. That is about 3% of our total budget. The state came back about a month ago and said, okay, you can soften that blow by starting the valuation at 90%. Even raising it to 90%, the town loses $123,000 in revenue that we got last year on those cars. In addition, we have an increase in health insurance. Health insurance is going up across the board for every town. New towns, First Selectman told me that their health insurance costs went up 24%. The taxes in other towns, New Fairfield just passed their budget. It's a 7.56% increase. And most of the other local towns are plus 5% plus in their increases. They're getting hit with the same things we are, motor vehicle and health insurance. Our health insurance costs are going up 11% this year. That's a big jump. But those two things alone, health insurance is going up $652,000. So motor vehicles and health insurance together represent 0.96% of the increase in this budget. Almost 1%. Almost 1%. If those had stayed the same, our budget would be about 2.9, 2.95, which I think is a pretty good goal. On the education budget, the Board of Ed made a submission total of $54,800,000. The Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance made adjustments. We raised their budget for health insurance because we got that information well after they had to submit their budget to the town. And we also added back in $620,000 for special education transportation, and special education tuition for our special ed students. In the past, we had, for the last 5 or 6 years, what we had done is said to the Board of Ed, hey, tell us your real costs as of when you create your budget. And then if you have additional expenses, for, let's say a student comes in August and is special needs and has an expense of $120,000 to educate that student, come to the town and the Board of Finance, and we will support you on that. It is happening so consistently, the Board of Finance made a decision to add back $620,000 into the Board of Ed's budget for that, and their status quo increase is $1 million. Their overall increase is about 4.81%. That compares very, very favorably with some other school districts. It's still larger than we like, but they are not adding anything, really. They are adding, here's what they're adding. They're adding a full-time employee for Portuguese. They're doing that because they had a half-time slot open, but they could not find anyone who would take a job at half employment. So they've asked that become a full-time employee, and that will cost an additional $45,000. They want to boost reading for $19,000. Their CKLD, PD, and instructional supplies are $15,000. They want to add 2/10 of a French teacher, and new co-curricular and athletic stipends for coaches is $7,000. This is really $101,000 total. It's a very, very reasonable increase that they've asked for, in my opinion. We'll find out when people get to the vote. Can we move on more? We want to look a little bit at the debt service, and we split this out. The brown part of these budgets and payments are the schools, what our debt attributable to the schools is, and the yellow is what's attributable to the town. Many towns include in the Board of Ed budgets all their debt for schools and things like that. We don't do that. We keep the debt on the town side, but we thought it was interesting. So you can see, 6 years ago, we decided to build a new school. We borrowed $68 million in 2 tranches over 2 different years, and then we have to start paying it back. And you can see the increase. Everyone in town, we had a very positive vote to build a new school, and at that point in time, we had said that the average homeowner would pay an additional, I think, $340 a year. That was based on interest rates of 4%. We borrowed for the schools as an average of 2.8%. So that is a savings of about $1 million a year just in interest. So I would guess, I haven't run the numbers, but the average cost per household is really closer to $300 to $320 per year. That's what we're paying for the new school. But it's still a big nut. It's still a lot of money. And so the Board of Finance, in conjunction with my office and the Board of Selectmen, has put together not only a 10-year capital plan, but in the last few months we have put together guidelines specific guidelines on how to manage debt, how much debt we will take on, how we will process it, how we will take it on, what projects will be approved, and that is going to be our Bible going forward. We have a 10-year plan on all our capital spending, and if you'll notice later in this budget presentation, when I first took office 8 years ago, in previous administrations, we had borrowed for $5,000 items. We shouldn't be doing that. We should be paying cash for $5,000 items. If you'll see in this budget when we get there, what we're borrowing for. Can we move to the next one there? Here's a capital budget, and these in the first column total, that's the total cost of the project. Then in the next column is bonded. This is what we will be borrowing to pay for those projects. The next column is what we will pay for with year-end 25-26 tax revenues. Then year-end 25 interest, because we had additional interest than we had originally anticipated this year. And then reserves, which we've been putting aside for things like fire trucks, turf fields, etc. And then other. Other is just a couple where EMS had a profit in 24, so we're going to use that to pay for some capital projects. And on the police vehicle replacement, the police commissioner and the police chief have agreed this year on a one-time basis to pay for one of their vehicles out of their outside services fund. Their outside services fund is money that they collect when they work, for example, construction projects. We charge the contractor. If we've got a policeman there guiding traffic, we charge the contractor who's doing the project both for the policeman and for the car. We pay the policeman a very nice stipend for that, but there is also a small margin of profit in that. That goes into the outside services fund, and the police have agreed to use that fund to purchase one car, so we thank them for that. These are very straightforward. We do have increased need for ambulances, and EMS calls have gone up. That's understandable. Police records and dispatch management, we need to do that. We have a system that's over 20 years old, and we get increasing demands for FOI. And now FOI is not simply taking a piece of paper, copying it, and sending it to someone. Now that every one of our police officers is wearing an Axon camera, it takes us to issue an FOI for police cameras. It takes us on average 2 hours to process every hour of video that the police have. And the reason being is we have to block out license plates, we have to block out children, we have to block out people who are not involved in this. It's very, very strict on what we can show and what we can't show. And that's why we need an additional part-time records clerk, because this is a lot of work to process these. And the number of FOIs that we're getting is increasing over time. It just is. And the number of FOIs for these Axon camera records is really weighing down on the police department. So these systems will help. Obviously, every year we replace police cars. We have to have police cars that will operate 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Those cars, once they come off of duty with the police, they come to the town. We use them for our various departments. If land use needs a car, we give them one of those cars. Typically, we keep these cars between 10 and 15 years. And that's a good thing. We get a lot of use out of them. Public Works and Paving. Paving, we're going to do, once again this year, pay $1.5 million in cash. 8 years ago, we were borrowing $1.15 million to pave. Now we pay 100% in cash. And we wanted to continue to do that. Public Works needs a dump truck and a mini backhoe. We've agreed upon that. There are 2 Parks and Rec vehicles, dump trucks that need to be replaced, and there are some reserves for future specified projects. There are improvements to the school fields, which we have to do. And then we get an offset from steep grants and the CLAS funding for some of the projects that we're doing, such as the lights on the field back here to increase the use of the baseball field. Under education, the year before last, the high school went out and hired a consultant. They looked at the high school in Wisconsin and went through the building up and down through the entire building and created a 10-year plan that the town should follow to maintain those buildings, keep them safe, keep them comfortable, make sure they don't leak, and to preserve our buildings. Everybody who has children here has experienced, I think, Huckleberry, and that building was a mess. We don't want to let any of our buildings get in that condition. So we need to spend this money to maintain and improve these buildings. When we replace air conditioning units and air handling units, we're getting much more efficient units that use less electricity. As we've all seen, electricity in the last 6 months has gone through the roof. On that, the town is right now working with a consultant who is examining every single building we have in town to put solar on. And it gets pretty complicated. So we have a company that does this for free. They will help us negotiate with contractors. The two buildings that are most likely to be able to be used for solar are this high school and Wisconsin. The problem that we have with both these buildings is we haven't maintained the roofs quite the way we would like. They will not put solar on a building that has roofing that's more than 3, 4, 5 years old, because they don't want a complaint that, oh, your solar installation caused my building to leak. So that's one of the requirements. So we're working with the schools to come through with an engineered level of making sure all the roofs are done properly, and then what we believe we can do is do a phase-in approach of solar. Solar is one of the things. This building is perfect. It's got a flat roof. Wisconsin is perfect. It's got a flat roof. They're both exposed to the sun the vast majority of the day. And with the price of electricity going through the roof, I think that's something we should do. And we're going to try to do that. So the high school plan and the middle school plan, this is an expense. It's a total of about $2.2 million. These are things that have to be done in these buildings to keep them safe and secure and to maintain them. We have to do a reval every 5 years. That's coming up. It's expensive. We have to hire firms to do the reval for us. So we need $200,000 to do that in total. So we're going to take $40,000 out of the revenue we had today, this year's budget, and then take $160,000 from the reserves, because we've been reserving money for that every single year. There is also a reserve for pre-referendum for the community center that we're working on. We have 2 ad hoc committees. One is looking at the police station and what needs to be done with the police station. As most of you probably know, there are new state laws that require us to make changes to the police station. We have to upgrade them. There is a law. There are laws. And so we have an ad hoc committee working on that with the chief of police and the police commission. And we also have a community center looking at both, can we take center school and repurpose it, or should we build new? They're both looking at that. We then have to talk to the boards, particularly the Board of Finance, to determine, one, we have to get costs for these, and then where can we fit them into the town's budget so it makes sense and it does not overly burden our taxpayers. Just has to be reasonable, just does. And it's going to be a few years down the road, because we still have the CLES debt. We're sitting on now about $100 million in debt. We took $68 million out for CLES. That's a lot of money. Our debt policy says we do not want to be over 10% in payments for debt versus what our budget is. Our budget's about $93 million this year, right? That would mean that we don't want to have more than $9.3 million in debt payments this year. And the Board of Finance has done an incredible job in managing this and looking at it and planning for the future. Then we have some other projects or small little things, but the total on that is $6,896,000. Now back to my point of earlier. If you notice in bonded, the lowest cost thing we're bonding is $332,000. 10 years ago, we were bonding things over $5,000. My goal, and I think the goal of the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance, from talking to members, I haven't got written confirmation, we want to continue to pay for things in cash. We want to move up. Every time you borrow, it puts a burden on your town. You have to pay interest, and it puts a burden on people in the future. So if we can, I would like to see every single project under $300,000, or maybe go up, paid for with cash. And we're getting there. Pay as you go. Can we move to the next one? Revenue, this is what the revenue looks like. It's pretty straightforward. The total on each of these, you can see what we're getting. We always, and I think the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen have always done a good job on this, we estimate very, very conservatively. We estimated interest to be lower than it actually came in this year. So we have money coming in that we didn't expect. We always estimate fees from land use, from town clerk, all fees. We estimate them very, very carefully and are conservative with them, so we do not underrun our budget or overrun our expenditures. And every year, we usually have a surplus. Some years it's not large, but that shows careful, conservative management. Because the last thing we want to do is to dip into our general fund reserves. We have a AAA rating from S&P. That rating allowed us, when we borrowed from the schools, to save between, what our rating agency says, between 40 and 70 basis points, right? On $1 million, that's a lot of money. On $68 million, that is $3-4 million a year. I'm sorry, I don't have the right number. Let's say it's 1%, so it's 68. It would be, if the ratings difference was 1% on a $68 million, that would be $680,000 we would save. So we're saving somewhere around $400,000 a year having that AAA rating. We keep that AAA rating because our general fund, we've been able to grow it over the last 8 years. When I first took office, we were under about 1.8% after we had lost the 3.3 million. We're over 15% now. And that gives the rating agencies confidence that the town knows what they're doing. They do not touch their general fund. We do not use it as a piggy bank that we got this project, we're gonna pay for it. It's there to protect the town from super emergencies. For example, the macro burst. We had to spend about $4 million in that macro burst before we were reimbursed by FEMA. We're still getting reimbursed by FEMA 6 years later. But we have the wherewithal to do the things we need to protect our town and our residents, and that's why a general fund of that size is a really good thing, along with having a AAA rating. Under this budget that we're asking people to approve, taxes will go up 3.69%. That is the lowest in the area, except for New Milford. New Milford is having a 2.45% tax increase they're asking their residents, but they're also sending out 62 pink notices to teachers because their Board of Finance cut the Board of Ed budget by almost $2 million. That's about 3% of their budget. Brookfield, I think, does this differently. We care about our kids. We want the Board of Ed to spend our money very carefully, but we will support our schools and our children. And you can see that in how we handle Board of Ed budgets. Next one. So I'm going to sit down. I'm going to let Will take over for public comments and questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. So at this point, I'm going to open up for any public comment that anyone would like to make. If you're interested, just come down. We'll let you use this microphone. Please state your name, your address, and we will ask that people keep their comments to 3 minutes per speaker. Matt?
Matt Grimes, 11 Orchard Street. Steve, you had the Public Works slide up there at one point. How many miles of road do we expect to bond with this upcoming budget?
We have 92 miles of... The town has 92 miles of road. We typically pave between 10 and 12 miles a year. We split that paving into two separate functions. If roads are in pretty good shape and they're 6 to 8 years old, we do what we call as a micro pave. We cut down 1.5 inches and then we overlay. That gives us another 6-7 years of life, and it's much less expensive than a full taking the entire road up and repaving it. So the Director of Public Works looks at that, and between the two, we do about between 10 and 12 miles a year. Our goal is to do about 10% per year. So every 10 years, we're redoing the roads. You can see, and many people have said this, and not just me, you can see a difference if you drive in from other towns into Brookfield. The roads are in better shape, and we pay cash every year. Our Public Works Department does an incredible job doing that. I know, did you see in the paper the other day? Danbury, I don't know how many roads Danbury has. It's certainly more than 92 miles. Until this year, they were repaving 8 miles a year. This year, they're going to go to 15 miles a year. And I've got to believe they have 300 or 400 miles of roads in Danbury. So It's the kind of problem, if you get on top of it like we have, we're paying 100% cash, we can do that every year. And we micropave more and more roads every year so that we can keep up. It's less expensive. When we first started doing it, we were basically almost all the roads 10 years ago. We were completely having to tear up right down to the dirt and then build new roads. Now it's about 50-50 micropaves versus full redo, so that's good.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any comments?
Austin Montero, 17 Dairy Farm. Just clarification, Steve, really. And first, I didn't get a chance to thank Mr. Hoffman on April 1st, and we had a previous meeting. I thought that presentation was very digestible and makes this whole process for everybody a whole lot easier to comprehend for some things that can be confusing. So that was great. I wanted to say that. A couple of questions here. One on the expense side, two on the revenue side. You brought up the health insurance piece. Obviously, it's a state issue. I'm under the assumption this is really coming from state legislation and really eliminating the number of health insurance providers that are available to us. Is there anything you can add on to that, or what are you hearing from powers that be, so to speak?
Yeah, we use the state plan. There's a state-sponsored health insurance plan. It's a very good plan. When we switched to it in 2016, from being self-insured, we saved $600,000 a year. Right? A lot of that's gone away. The increases for the state plan have been, for the most part, given what health insurance costs have been pretty reasonable. 4, 5, 6% one year. I think it was 3%. This is the largest increase we've ever gotten, 11%. I think I do not know the answer, but I think there's no doubt there is a consolidation of healthcare providers in this area. Nuvance, pretty much every doctor in the area works for Nuvance. Nuvance decides exactly what those doctors get paid. I know that the state plan actively negotiates with health plans. Personally, one of our doctors was dropped out of the plan. We had to change doctors. So they do it aggressively. When you're self-insured, you take a big risk. Remember, when you're self-insured, you're paying every single medical bill yourself for all of your employees. You just hire an insurance company to administer it. So the liability is unbelievable. If you get somebody, 1, 2, or 3 or 4 people that get some very serious conditions, you could be looking at, for 3 or 4 people, millions of dollars every year in a self-insured plan. We think the state plan is a better way to go. How this is going to work out with the legislature, I think the state plan has worked pretty well, and we can't say that about a lot of state plans. Some state plans don't work very well.
Yeah, I agree. It's $1 million increase in 5 years is sizable, so hopefully for every town we can find a nice pathway forward there where it's not adding up so quickly. A second point about from the expense side, I know we talked earlier about the electric bill. Obviously, not much we can control with that. I do like the idea of the solar piece. I think that's great. To find alternative methods to lower some costs, I think that's a good idea. And then just lastly, I couldn't see in here, but from a percentage-wise, what does our commercial tax base make in terms of our revenue? What percentage does that look like right now?
I'm going to take a guess at that, and I would guess somewhere between 15 and 20%. That would be my guess.
Okay.
I can get you a more accurate figure.
Yeah, that'd be
I'll send
great.
it to you tomorrow.
Awesome. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Austin. Any other comments?
Hi, Jessica Hansen, 40 Marin Brook Road. I'm going to ask about kind of the second part of what we're talking about, which is the vote date for the schools. So I'm going to ask in accordance with section C9, 3A of the town charter.
Yeah, can we just, for this part of our meeting? can we
Okay,
just-
I was going to wait on that.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's fine. I'll wait for the second part. No problem.
Sure.
Hi there, Elena Lopez, 9 Summer Pasture Lane. So I'm also here to speak about the date of when we're going to vote.
This part right now is really just questions or comments on the budget itself.
In particular.
That's a good one. Okay. Anyone else? No, on the budget, sorry. Sorry. No, okay. Sure.
Austin Montero, 17 Dairy Farm. I'm sure we've heard that before. In terms of future planning, obviously, big concern for folks is all the high-density housing coming to town. You mentioned it, Steve, it's going to bring an increase, obviously, in public safety, nature of the beast, right? Where do you foresee that from your seat moving forward in the next few years, let's just say, with the number of apartments coming?
That's a good question. The town has to, every 10 years by law, create a plan of conservation and development. This is the year we have to do it. 10 years ago we did it. If anybody has read that plan of conservation and development, it was done extremely well. And one of its big focuses was the Four Corners, the downtown area. And they laid out specific things that they would like to see. And I don't know, there's probably people here. They had a lot of meetings where residents could come in and share their ideas. And the overall goal is what I would say is to have a small rural town with commercial on the ground floor, maybe some apartments on the second and third floor, right? Similar to a Westport of Darien, a West Hartford, any number of towns, New Canaan in Connecticut. And the zoning board is then charged with taking that plan of conservation and development and making zoning laws that fit the POCD. When I first took office, we had a guy who came into town and wanted to build a 7-story building in the downtown in Four Corners, 7 stories. He was using a law called 830G. 830G is a state law that allows any developer to come into any town, and if they dedicate 30% of the apartments in that building to affordable, they can build anything they want. This guy could have built a 20-story building. We stopped him. I said, listen, we're going to fight you on this. We're going to go to court. I think you'll probably win, but it'll be 8 years from now, right? You'll spend $1 million on legal fees. The town will spend $1 million on legal fees. But I think my residents will give me the $1 million to fight you because we do not want a 7-story building in Brookfield. Having gone through that experience, I immediately applied for, with the state, a moratorium on 830G. And we got it. We got a 4-year moratorium. No developer could come in and bypass any of our zoning laws. They can't do it. If they want to come in and develop, they have to develop the way Brookfield wants. Having done that, we then, after 4 years, reapplied for an 830G moratorium. And we were approved. We are the only town in Connecticut that has ever been approved for 2 moratoriums on 830G. Now, a lot of developments we're seeing right now, like the ones behind SIBO and behind Dollar General, those are approved 10, 12, 14 years ago. There is a lot of development in town. What I'm seeing, this is my personal opinion, what I'm seeing in the Four Corners is not matching what I saw in the plan of conservation and development. It's too big, it's too much. It's too tall. It's just too much. So in January, after I took office this time, I went to the chair of the zoning commission and I said, you know what, Curtis? It's Curtis Timmerman. I think while we're doing the new plan of conservation and development, we should put a moratorium on multifamily housing. And that's what they did. There's a moratorium on building any new multifamily housing until December of 2026. Why they create the POCD, the new POCD, because this is Brookfield. You guys live here. The developers don't live here. They don't care. They only care about making money. It's our job to make sure that they build these buildings in a way that's going to meet our needs as residents. And right now what I'm seeing, I don't like it. All right? And so that's a long-winded answer, but does that answer your question, Austin? Thank you.
More services and to higher taxes.
Yeah, you know, when we look at all these developments, like Laurel Hill, Brookfield Village, etc., there were complaints that, well, they're just driving our number of calls up for police and fire. They are increasing calls for both of those, but they are not increasing the calls at a rate any higher than Lake Leelanau condos, any higher than Rollingwood. They have about the same number of calls based on the number of residents. It's not outrageous, it's not. It's just, we are growing though, there's no doubt about it. There are more calls, no doubt about it. But they're not growing in the downtown at a higher rate than any other developed area, like Rollingwood. Does that make sense?
Thank you, Steve. Anybody else have a question on the budget? Yes, Tara?
Tara Carr, 54 Indian Trail. To that point on the development and moving to this budget and for out years, are there any other developers who've come forward recently looking for a tax abatement on the new projects?
No, there's been no developer that has come to us. We've had developers, not since I've taken office, no developer has come to us and asked for a tax abatement. We had a lot of developers in the past ask us tax abatement, and we said no. The only way I would agree, and I think the Board of Selectmen would agree, to a tax abatement is if the town is getting something in return. There is a tax abatement that was offered to 731. That's where the new food emporium is going in. They're giving the town 36 dedicated parking spaces for the Silver Greenway and for municipal use. We ran the numbers. That tax abatement will total about $300,000 if and when they meet the requirements of the tax abatement, which they have not done yet. The building, they have to prove to us the building is worth $10 million, and they've met another bunch of criteria. They have not done it. We've asked them to do it. They have not given us any of that information. So they're not getting that tax abatement until they do that. We did do a study on what it would cost to buy about a half an acre in the downtown, put a parking lot on it, stripe it, and make it for municipal parking. The cost for that was estimated somewhere between $180,000 and $240,000. Then we have to maintain it, we have to take care of it, we have to pave it every 10 years, we have to stripe it, we have to plow it. So for $300,000, we're getting 36 spaces. They own the parking spaces. They have to stripe them, they have to pave them, they pay taxes on them. There's no tax abatement on those. So sometimes a tax abatement makes sense. But if you just want to come in and get an abatement, we just say no. You make it worthwhile to the town. The town needs to get something in return for us to give you an abatement. When we had Branson Ultrasonics come in, we gave them a tax abatement, right? They did not meet the requirements. That tax abatement never took effect. Never took effect because they couldn't meet the requirements because we write really tight tax abatement contracts. In that case, Branson, there is a local town that we abut that offered them no taxes for 4 years. 4 years on a $20 million building. Oh, we wouldn't do that. So if there are no abatements out there, I'm not entertaining anyone, no one's asked.
Thank you, Steve. Any other budget questions? No? Okay, then I'm going to close this portion. We're going to move to the second portion of our meeting. I know a lot of people want to make comment on this section, so let me start with a motion to get us going, and then we'll open up for public comment. So I'd like to ask for a motion from the floor to set Tuesday, May 20th from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. as the date and time for the annual budget referendum. Got a motion from the floor? Jean Hartnett, thank you. Any seconds?
Second.
Name?
Jillian Doherty.
Jillian Doherty. Thank you. Any discussion on this item?
Yeah, so on this, can I talk first because some information came up in the last 2 days and I think some people are not aware of. On Sunday night, I attended a meeting of the Board of Education at 7 p.m. At that meeting, the Board of Ed decided in a vote of 6-1 to not allow voting in Candlewood Lake Elementary School. We're going to go along with what the Board of Ed asked for, and we're going to move that voting to St. Marguerite's. At the same time, they did approve voting in the Brookfield High School for the districts on this side of town. So right now, we will have voting at Brookfield High School for the referendum, and we will have it at St. Marguerite's. We talked to St. Marguerite's yesterday morning. They've agreed to let us rent their property, and they've also agreed if the referendum, God forbid, doesn't pass, to let us have their property 2 weeks later, also if a second referendum is required. So I wanted to give that as background for people. Go ahead.
Thank you. One second. One other thing I'd just like to add for the public. Many of you were here on April 1st when we reviewed the capital budget in detail. And at that meeting, we did set the capital referendum date for May 20th, which will coincide with this. And we typically have done that in this town for the ease for our voters to come once and vote, but also...
You're the moderator, you can't speak up to this.
Okay, good. Just information.
Okay, so let me say something on that. So by our town law and charter, we have to set the referendum date for capital at least 45 days ahead of time. So we had to do that a month and a half ago for May 20th. If we do not have the vote on May 20th, that means if it's changed to another date, right, we can only do the budget. We have to then go through another 45-day process to set a referendum date for the capital. That means we will most likely be in July and have a second vote, a second referendum for capital apart from the town and school budget. And that would cost somewhere between $15,000 and $17,000 to do. Just so you have that background.
Yeah, so I'm requesting a move on the referendum date to be changed from Tuesday, May 20th, 2025 to Saturday, May 17th, 2025. Oh. Jessica Hansen, 40 Moranbrook Road, Danbury, Connecticut. Thanks. I'm from Brookfield, Connecticut. It is a motion to amend. Yes, correct, thank you.
So that, just to clarify, that's a motion to amend the motion that I made. Just correct?
Yes, correct.
Thank you. Is there a second on that? Nate? Thank you. Any discussion on that item, on that motion, sorry? Amendment, on the amendment. Matt?
First of all, I want to thank a bipartisan Board of Ed who took the action they did Sunday night. I thought that was in the best interest of the school district. I thought it was in the best interest of safety. I do not like the fact that town government is putting it in itself of kneecapping the budget vote into a date that they want with the capital vote. That's not right to do. We have the flexibility of the budget vote for a reason. It was put in the charter years ago. And, frankly, you could talk about what it costs. I don't put a price on democracy. That's just me. So I'm in favor of this vote to move the vote to Saturday. I think that we'll get a higher turnout. I believe that it will not have any issues with parking as far as the high school is concerned. And I do hope that this is the last vote, that we force District 3 voters out of their district to vote. We have a new District 3 for a reason. They should be voting in District 3. So I'm in favor of this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Any other discussion items on this?
Hi there, Elena Lopez, 9 Summer Pasture Lane. It's very easy to listen to everything and say, well, if we have the capital budget, why would we move the capital vote? Why would we move the budget? Let's just do it in the same day, right? Makes sense. Well, as a parent, I'm extremely concerned because the way that things have operated and the way that things have changed have been very last minute. I feel it's been hidden from the public so that there was not really a chance to do anything about it. Sarah Joy, Aaron, Bob, Rosa, and Stephanie all voted the right way during the Board of Ed special meeting on Sunday, and I thank them. But on Monday afternoon, our registrar, Leslie Ruggiero, told the News Times it is still being determined as to who has the final say on voting when school is in session and voting in schools. This makes me extremely nervous that if we vote this budget through on Tuesday, something is going to happen where it's going on Tuesday, something's going to happen where all of a sudden we're not at St. Margaret's anymore. In my time in researching this topic, I've written to the Board of Ed, Board of Selectmen. I actually sat down with Leslie in the registrar's office. Moving the vote into CLES while the kids are in school does not make sense, according to the Security Task Force, of which the Chief of Police is a member. It doesn't make sense for the voter. Would you rather go to St. Margaret's or CLES? I don't even want to drop my kids off or pick them up at CLES. I can't imagine an elderly person showing up at that time to vote. It's further for them to walk to the building, and at drop-off and pickup, we have 1,100 kids walking down a very long pathway with anybody who's a District 1 voter allowed access to that area. It's very scary as a parent. So I'm concerned. I have trouble believing it is solidified to be in St. Marguerite's. And, you know, Mr. Dunn, you just spoke to our schools being a priority, so maybe if we have a guarantee, but if we don't have an absolute guarantee, then I feel we should move this vote to Saturday, because it sounds like the town really needs the school building, which I understand, but it would make the most sense to do it when the kids aren't there. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion on this? Go ahead.
Jessica Hansen, 40 Merwin Brook Road, Brookfield, Connecticut. I feel the same as a parent. I understand that we need the use of the building. There are ways to vote in schools when it's not affecting the daytime activities, the security, the safety of the kids. I think we have to take into consideration also what happened in this town not too long ago about bomb threats and things that are of concern. And I think we're not in the knowledge of knowing that safety and security for schools is something that should be a priority at this point. So to spend the kind of money we did at Candlewood Lake Elementary School for the top-notch security, being 20 minutes from Sandy Hook and other types of situations, and then to say we're opening up to the public for voting use seems really counterproductive. I don't actually know all the ins and outs of the additional costs of what it would take to do 2 separate voting times, so I will say I don't know on the budget part of that, but I do care a whole lot about the safety of our kids, about what our administration in the school thought, about what the Board of Ed thought, but our chief of PD absolutely saying we shouldn't do this. I'd like to see, the date change, because even at the high school, as much as it's not a K-5 school, and it might be a little easier like it's been here during school hours, I think in general we should be moving away from voting in schools, because the kids should be put in a daytime situation where they're focusing on their academics and safety and all the concerns that parents do have. If we continue to push it this way just for voting, it says to me that we are putting our kids' interests second and the administrators second and disrupting the school, especially at Candlewood Lake Elementary School with over 1,200 students. It's already very, very difficult to monitor the traffic. I pick up and drop off my kid every day, and it's not an easy task to even get in and out. As a parent, as a bus driver, as faculty, they don't want it. So I urge you to consider this date change to a Saturday, so it is not during school hours, for the best interest of our school and children. Thanks.
Please, come on.
Deborah Case, Brookfield resident. I don't have this one. Here I do 21 Meadowview Drive. See, I'm against that too, because when I'm here, I'm not home protecting my family, and this is being live streamed. So, anyway, I actually, after seeing the numbers tonight, I think it's atrocious that the town even considered having the voting in the schools. And Mr. Dunn's own words, he said a handful from about, 50 years ago? We have a handful of additional police officers from 50 years ago. You see how big our town is from 50 years ago? On any given day alone, we are grossly outnumbered if there's a catastrophe that happened. Imagine something happening at CLES where the majority of our students are, our little ones. How are you going to control that? How are you going to save them? How are you going to do anything? This is completely preventable. I'm against even having them at the high school right now. Our police station is the size of a postage stamp. There's just no way to even consider it. I do not think that when you made that choice that you were putting the safety of our children first, that you claim. And it's just something that we have to rethink going into the future, and I'm completely against it. There's no way you can control or save our children, our teachers, our administrators, if anything were to happen. Just won't. Thank you.
Jillian Doherty, 49 Hopbrook Road. I'd like to start with a question of clarification. Okay, sorry. I'd like to start with a question of clarification, and that is, I saw today that the May 20th vote will be allowed to happen at St. Marguerite's, correct? Then...
That is correct.
Thank you. Then I would like to propose that we go ahead and keep the budget votes on Tuesday, May 20th for this year. I'm not saying that we can't revisit having a Saturday budget vote for next year, but we have about 2 weeks to get that information out there. That's not enough time. We vote on Tuesdays in this town. We always have, except maybe for once that I know of. So again, I propose, since we're not going to be in CLES, we've been voting in the high school and the gym can easily be blocked off. And then we approach it all from a fresh perspective, without the hysteria, hopefully, next year for the budget vote. Thank you.
Irene Correa, 45 West Wisconsin Road. I am a member of the MBC, so my comments here tonight are actually as a private citizen. I saw the plans for voting at CLES, and they were actually planned to be at the gym, which is in the physical center of the building, for anybody who's not familiar with the building, and all these security measures around it. And looking back through notes for the MBC, it's actually the architect designed it into the building, and it's supposed to be on the 2 to 5 cafeteria, where there's limited access to get into the building. So it was designed to there. But what really upset me was the lack of communication between all the different entities in town on how to do that, and how it came down from the school that this is how it's going to be. And that wasn't the initial design. So communicating would be a lot better going forward. A lot of people were angry at each other, and I think if people had asked questions, like I'm on the MBC distribution email, we didn't get one question about how the voting was supposed to be at the building. Whether we have it there or not, I'm not here to discuss that, but there was a lot of lack of communication. It made a lot of people upset, and it's understandable. But the way it was presented by the school was not the design intent. I just wanted to pass that along from a design standpoint. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Tom Keller, 3 New Bridge. Being it has not really been finalized as far as the schools, I've been reading that it's still up in the air, and through various conversations, it looks like there will be an attempt to try and move it back to the schools. I think at this point we should just move the budget votes to Saturday from here forward, and this way we won't have that school issue with the students in the school anymore. We'll take care of that, and this way we don't have to worry about it getting moved back to the schools. And also, like Matt said, we do need to move District 3 into the District 3 area instead of having them come into District 2 to have to vote. That plan was in effect. I don't know whatever happened to it. So move District 3 and then move the vote to Saturday so we don't have this problem again in the future.
Okay, anyone? Sure, come on.
I'm sorry, I just, Elena Lopez, 9 Summer Pasture Lane. I just wanted to point out one other thing. It makes logical sense to vote on the capital and the budget on the same day. The capital vote was set on April 1st. There was absolutely no idea at that time to the general public, to 4 out of the 7 Board of Ed members, that CLES was even on the table. That email came, I believe, from Mr. Dunn on April 6th. I would have been at that April 1st meeting asking for Saturday. I know a lot of parents would have. So I just thought it was important to share that, and we will have less people going to the school on May 20th if they're only voting on the capital versus voting on capital and budget. Thank you.
Laura Hewling, 34 Hidden Brook Drive. I wanted to say I completely agree with the decision for it to not be at CLES. I do have a point of inquiry. I know, was it Jillian who said that we've always voted on Tuesdays? Has there been any historical numbers of if we voted on other days, if turnouts are higher, lower, anything like that? Because I feel like maybe there was some history to it, and that's a piece of information I feel like I'm missing before I make this decision.
Yeah, my understanding on this is that many, many, many years ago, well, I'm talking 30 years ago, 40 years ago, there was a question talking about going to Saturday votes, and it never went anywhere. Since I've lived here in 1983, we've always voted on Tuesdays. That's just what we've done. On the same issue, we're really talking about only 2 days that students might be in the school at the same time voting takes place. That would be on a referendum, because in presidentials and others, the schools are closed. And that would be for the November election, if there is a primary. If we hold the election in a school, the primary must, by law, be held in the same place. So that might be on a school day when students are in school. There is one solution to this, is that we have personal development days for those 2 days. I agree with that, and the schools might be able to do that. There has been, if we move to a Saturday vote, it will push the capital off into July. Okay, costs more money. But we have to consider, if we move it to this Saturday, in most years, if that referendum fails, we do it in 2 weeks, the next Saturday. That usually falls on Memorial Day weekend. You're going to get a different turnout, I think, on a Memorial Day weekend. That's not a great option. It really isn't. So I think the best option is to have, I agree with not having students in school when there is voting. But in talking to the school administration this week about Saturday voting, the superintendent said to me, whoa, if you have Saturday voting, I don't think I'm comfortable having kids in the fields during Saturday voting. We'd have to really talk about that, right? We just have kids out in the field rather than in a protected building. You can be concerned about that, but when we have people in a building, they're more protected than if we had them out in the fields. And given, I'm sorry, I'm just repeating what the superintendent said to me. And it is a concern. It's something we should consider. We might have lacrosse teams out there. We might have football teams. We might have soccer teams. We might have baseball teams out in the fields. And crazy people are crazy, right? Our goal is to protect our students. John Baril raises a reasonable question.
That there's never an empty school.
Yeah, well, no, if we did personal development days on those 2 days, then we'd be fine. We'd be following, I think we would meet everybody's needs. We have to have that discussion with everybody, though, right?
Well, so I guess my comment, my question would be, personally, me as a pattern voter, I go either on my commute into work or commute out to work. I am not, my routine is typically not to go, I don't even know what I'm doing this Saturday. So that's kind of where my nervousness is that voter turnout might be a little different, because that's
Yeah,
the
we do.
routine of in and out work, because that's usually when the higher turnouts are.
People get used to voting in one place, people get used to voting on a single day. You're right.
But because we haven't had it, I think historically, we don't have those numbers, right? So I don't know. Well, thank you, Matt. I appreciate the clarification in a second. I guess in my nature as a person, as I try to say, I am very happy that it's not CLAS. I couldn't fathom that being successful. But I am a status quo girl until we hash it out a little bit more. So I think that personally, I would love to keep it how it has been in the past years and then hash it out with Board of Ed, looking at PD days in the future. That's my 2 cents.
Okay. Thank you.
Useless Brookfield history, here we go. We had several votes on Saturdays throughout the mid to late 90s, and it was done in the days where you had to have a town meeting in between each referendum. Today we vote every 14 days. In all cases, except 1 year, the second vote was moved to Saturday, and the turnout doubled in vote because people could not make the excuse of not voting. The last time we voted on Saturday was after we had put in the charter that this meeting could change the date, and given the bad turnout in the 2010 budget vote, in 2011 the town meeting voters moved it to Saturday. And it was successful. The turnout was pretty close. It was a little higher. But what is different about Saturday than it is a Tuesday is you have a steady stream of voters throughout the day. It's not all bunched at one commute in one district and one commute in the other. We have had a couple of standalone referendums on Saturday, but one thing you are going to have next year that you don't have today for budget votes is the no excuse absentee voting. You're not going to have early voting, but next year budget, anybody who wants an absentee ballot is going to be able to get one, given the vote that passed this last year. So I believe Saturday votes do generate a higher turnout. It makes a lot less of an excuse that you didn't know about it. And as long as we're sending out the postcard and letting people know it's on Saturday, that should happen again. Thank you.
Erin Scalera, 5 Jackson Drive. I just actually asked you a clarifying question. So I have a really hard time sitting here and finding out that we're worried about kids on the field on Saturday, and we're going to vote in schools, or we potentially voting in schools on Tuesday. It just, I mean, it's a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah, I agree, but I just had that conversation 2 days ago,
Yeah.
Monday
I mean,
morning.
I really think moving forward, there has to be communication between what's going on here. But I have a very hard time worrying about kids outside on a field with parents with them when you have students in a building and we're expecting one teacher to protect 25 kids in the classroom.
Well, we have police. There are police in the building and outside. I don't want to get into a big argument. I'm
Okay.
just stating a fact of what the superintendent, and it's a reasonable thing. We have to look at every option. We do. And I agree with you 100% that we have to have better communication. Because the Board of Ed made a decision to ban voting in the schools in the December meeting. That was the first the town ever heard about that. And I have not gotten a single communication from any member of the Board of Ed about voting on these days. I've not gotten some communication. I have written to the Board of Ed expressing my concerns and the town's concerns, but I've gotten one email from Stephanie last week asking questions that the security task force could answer for her. You know, who would we be there? Who would be the protection for, et cetera, et cetera. But I agree with you, better communication is incredibly important. And I don't think it happened here in a way it should. And that's why I'm saying, my opinion is, let's have the vote on Tuesday. We're a very short time here. It will be safe. I think maybe somebody didn't hear this, we are moving the voting to St. Marguerite's for the west side of town. It will be at Brookfield High School as it has been in the past on this side of town. We will be putting 2 police officers minimum in the Brookfield High School, 1 outside, 1 inside. The security task force, if I remember, 2 weeks ago Thursday, they met. Everyone on that security task force at the time, tell me if this is incorrect, if you're on the board, said, wow, the ring fence voting at CLES, it's separate entrance, voters and children will not be interacting. This is shared. Yeah. Right? But the way this, and people have to understand, CLES was designed with voting in mind. It was. It was designed, the security and the safety of school was designed to have voting. It was in the original design. Whether people want to have voting there is a different question.
I mean, I think at the end of the day, we're worried about kids on a ball field with parents there outside, and we're not worried about kids in this building voting on Tuesday. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Alan Donnelly, 119 Long Meadow Hill Road. I'll be very brief. I respectfully disagree with our first selectman. I just think it would be better, safer, and we'd have a higher turnout on a Saturday at St. Margaret's Church. And on a personal note, sir, I'd like to thank you very much for being here in person, and I wish you a speedy recovery.
Jessica Hansen, 40 Morinbrook Road, Brookfield, Connecticut. So the thing I want to mention is you've said a few times now that there's not going to be any interaction between voters and students, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. There is a 1,200, I don't know the exact number of students that are at CLES or at the high school. It's a lot. So when there's pickup and drop off, all within a half-hour time frame, there's absolutely exchanges. You know, I'm not trying to be like this fear-monger person and say, oh my God, something terrible is going to happen. But our job is to make sure it doesn't. The best that we know how. The other part of this is that you're saying that there's, you know, the police officers, there's a couple, my head's everywhere right now. So specifically when we're talking about CLES, and I know it's moved to St. Margaret's, but I want to make sure going forward, we try to keep it out of these schools in general. And the reason why I say that is because there actually isn't a way to physically separate and block off like you guys are saying. So originally it was designed to be in the portion going into the cafeteria, and then it was explained and discussed by my understanding of the people in the building committee and things that it actually could not be separated that way. And that was the original plan that you had to vote to separate it. So then they changed it to move to the left-hand side entrance, then cut off half of the gym. Okay, now I'm talking CLES, I'm not talking about the high school right now. So the issue with that is that when you have to take down half the gym, you put down the wall and half the gym, so the other half of the gym has to be used with that amount of students to be able to accommodate it. They have the only bathroom that you would use going into that school would be on the back end of one large gym, and there is not a way to lock one side to the other side. So the kids on the other side of that gym that they're using it, you can't get off. So that's why you're hiring the police officers. Because they have to literally stand there and make sure that the general public can't walk through that door to access the rest of the school. So that's probably a cost that's a lot more than St. Margaret's, is my assumption. To hire on, like, for the entire day of, what is that, 12, 14 hours? I mean, that's a question that maybe you could answer, but I'm assuming it's...
The cost is about the same.
Okay.
About $1,000. About $1,000 for a police officer, and about $1,000. It's right now. St. Margaret's hasn't given their fine number. The last time we rented St. Margaret's, they charged us $1,000.
Okay, because I kept hearing this one, you know, that's numbers that I don't know. But if we're talking about a couple $100 difference, I think the safety of the kids and not having to pull the police department out and go against the Board of Ed and other things like this is just, it's a no-brainer to me, period. It's a no-brainer. You know, I mean, that's it. And the push for this is frustrating for us, to be honest. So.
Okay, thank you.
Point of order. The motion on the table is about changing the date, correct?
The amended motion is...
You stated that this vote is being held in favor. So is there a reason we should continue the discussion about CLES?
Thank you. Anthony Cattiello, 135 Candlewood Lake Road. Before construction of the new center, Candlewood Lake Elementary School, Brookfield voters in District 1 went to Huckleberry Hill Elementary School to cast their ballots for the annual town referendum. Most of my adult life, I have voted in mid-May at Huckleberry Hill Elementary School. On Tuesday, May 15, 2018, I voted with the aid of emergency generators after the macro burst caused widespread damage throughout the town. Naturally, once the old Huckleberry Hill Elementary School had to be demolished, another site would have to be chosen, at least for the interim while the new school was being built. I assumed that setting up polling at St. Margaret Bourgeois Church was a temporary solution. I, for one, figured that after the new school building was opened, all voting would move back to the same old address. After all, if it was safe to conduct voting at Huckleberry Hill Elementary School, surely a brand new facility with all the benefits of modern school design and construction standards would be safe. Simple and straightforward, no? Apparently not. I understand that the Board of Education has heard many concerns from parents on the matter. Understandably, they want to be assured that appropriate measures have been put into place. I trust that suitably empowered members of this community have put in substantial time and energy towards addressing these concerns. I find it hard to believe that a practical and effective set of protocols cannot be formulated and administered in a way that mitigates all reasonable concerns. It was my understanding that Superintendent Dr. Burrill and Police Chief Puglisi essentially agreed on this. At least this sentiment was seen to have been expressed during the Board of Education meeting on April 9th. I am not privy to the various emails that the Board of Education may have received, nor have I seen the response emails from various selectmen and other stakeholders. I am also not privy to discussions which have occurred under the cloak of executive session, such as was done during the Security Task Force special meeting on April 24th. So I have little insight to any details of potential safety concerns, nor the set of responses which have been devised to address them. I realize this is a complex issue. Nonetheless, I would have expected that a reasonable solution could have been found, one that does not have to cause major change to the way things have successfully been done for years in the past. Maybe moving the vote to Saturday or the location this time would at least be the least disagreeable solution, but our town already has too small a percentage of voters turning out for budget referendums. Saturday voting may pose its own challenges. We must be careful not to do anything that would further reduce participation in this important process. Thank you.
Deborah Case, 21 Meadowview Drive, Brookfield, Connecticut. And just for the record, by stating my address, I already earned my admission when I showed my ID at the door. So all I have to do is come up here and say I'm a Brookfield resident. I do not need to state my address. With that said, there's a trickle effect. So in discussing the date of this vote, we've now exposed by you strategically where our police officers will be placed at the high school. And that is now my child's breach of security. I have a problem when we go to talk about security measures when it has to do with our children and we show our cards. It's an issue for me. My child is there, that's my child.
I have to say to you, can I just interrupt?
No, I'm not finished. Now, I've asked Board of Ed members where security is going to be, and Board of Ed members don't know where the security is going to be. So there is no conversations that are happening here. And as a taxpayer, where I pay my taxes, where my children go to school, I have a right to those answers. It's not that they're given just to one person solely. We need communication, a lot better communication here. Thank you.
I agree with you. The only thing I would say is saying that we'll have a police officer inside and outside. I don't think there are many other security measures, even that I'm not aware of, for CLES and the high school. I'm not aware of, and even otherwise I wouldn't talk about them. But saying we have a police officer in the building and outside, I'm not sure that's really abrogating any responsibility.
No, you need a point to apply a false sense of security by stating where there's going to be security. So now you're saying you're not really sure. What is it? Do you know where? Okay.
What I said was, there will be a police officer inside, there will be a police officer outside. I have also offered to the Board of Ed, but not gotten a response, that I would give you as many police officers as you want.
So I don't think that you should have made that statement then.
Actually, Ms. Case, I agree with you about keeping it secret information actually, but Dr. P sent out a very explicit email explaining exactly what is going to happen in CLES, which is totally inappropriate and uncalled for.
And I was on that meeting on Sunday night, and I thought that was actually a joke, because we always say, especially when you hear from the Board of Ed, how trust the experts. Well, Dr. P is not a security expert. Thank you.
Hi, Ellen O'Donnell, 5 Cottontail Lane. I'm going to ask a question, a point of clarity that I haven't heard mentioned before. St. Marguerite's is amenable to our using their facility for voting. It would be true that they are under no obligation in years going forward to be a place for voting, so it seems to me that acting like St. Marguerite's is always going to be there for us. We maybe have a bigger thing to think of going forward.
Yeah, that's true. We only have had event-by-event agreement by St. Marguerite's. We did go to them last year, the year before, and we wanted to have a voting event, and they said no, and we had to change it. So this year, we only have the 20th and 2 weeks after. If it was decided that it was a permanent location, we would try to enter into a long-term agreement with whatever, if it's not a town building, wherever we are going to have the voting, we will want to have a long-term agreement, a long-term understanding that these dates in the future are locked out for the town so we can plan.
And we pay St. Marguerite's.
Yes, we do.
My last thing that I guess is just concerning as a citizen is the lack of interest or concern when we talk about students. If that is a concern of safety, and I understand there's a cutoff at Brookfield High School, separate place, but there is no reason that one school should be more concerning than another school if you're truly concerned about schools.
Agreed.
And is it true that Town Hall can't facilitate because of parking?
It would be really difficult. Remember, the town is required for any voting event to be able to handle every single voter between 6 a.m. and 8 p.m. That's over 12,000 people. We've looked at it. We don't think we can handle 12,000 people at Town Hall. We just don't. We need bigger facilities.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so I think that ends the discussion. We have an amended motion on the floor to set the referendum date to... Just the amendment, correct. To change it from the 20th to the 17th. Okay. Can you just state that for me?
So right now, there's been an amendment placed on the floor which has been discussed. And the amendment is to substitute the 17th, which is a Saturday, for the 20th, which was the date in the main motion on the floor. So whether or not the amendment is approved, there will be a second vote on whatever the main motion is left with. Either the main motion will be for the 20th, or the main motion will be as amended for the 17th. But right now, the vote is just going to be on whether or not, yes or no, you want the 17th to be substituted for the 20th in the main motion.
Thank you for that clarity. Okay, so with that in mind, if you are in favor of changing the date in the original, or in the amended motion from the 20th to the 17th, please signify by saying... Well, I was going to suggest we start with a voice. If it's overwhelming, then we don't need to take the time to do the tickets. If it's close, we will come back and do the tickets for sure. Why don't we use the paddles? So if you're in favor of changing the date to the 17th, turn your paddle to the green side facing the front. For those who are not in favor of that, please turn your red paddle face forward.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, and myself is 33. You will, you voting?
No, I'm not. So,
Can I have a
26,
clarification?
yes?
If we change the school budget vote to Saturday, do we still have to have the Tuesday vote for the other part?
For the capital?
Yes, right?
Yes.
That can't be moved to Saturday also, so we will have to vote on Saturday and then again on Tuesday.
That's correct.
With kids in the building. So it doesn't solve the problem.
Remember, there will be no voting, as I understand it, in Candlewood Elementary School this year.
But in the high school.
But in the high school, there will.
Otherwise, the Tuesday vote would have to be moved to July, correct?
Point of order?
She said it.
Yeah, that's fair. So the tally was, so at this point, the amendment was defeated, so that the motion that is currently therefore on the floor is as originally stated, for the town to vote to set the referendum date for May 20th on Tuesday.
Where?
That's, yes, that's St. Marguerite's and high school, yes. So, for those of you in favor of that, please raise your green paddles forward.
I guess it's my job tonight. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Just to set the date on the 20th of Tuesday. I'm sorry, now I lost my... 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31. Anyone over there? 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, and I'm 37.
So, if you're not in favor, let's just go through that. The red paddles forward, please.
Officially. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 20, oh, that's right, I got it, 23, 24, that's it, 24.
24. Okay, so the motion has passed, and the budget referendum for the budget cycle this year will be on Tuesday, May 20th, from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. And it will be held at St. Marguerite's and the high school. Okay, thank you. I have a motion to adjourn the meeting. Oh, no, sorry. I apologize. I would like to turn the meeting over to our treasurer, John Lucas.
Thank you, Will. Good evening. And this will be very brief. I'm just complying with the state statute. Here we go. I hereby attest that to the best of my knowledge and belief, the most recent audited financial statements for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2024 presents a true and correct representation of the town's fiscal position. These statements have been prepared in accordance with applicable accounting principles and have undergone a thorough audit process to ensure accuracy and compliance. Copies of the annual report, as well as the proposed budget that we discussed tonight, will be available on the Finance Department's page of the town website. And with that, I'll turn it back to Will.
Thank you, John. Could I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Thank you. All those in favor? Yes. Good night. Andrew, you want the power?